There is so much going on in the stock market. There is so much going on beyond the stock market. It's not even about the stock market. It's also things going on in our daily lives, in our countries that will affect our lives, and it's going to happen soon. 3 major things that you should all be paying attention to. If you're an investor, obviously you're paying attention to the stock market and wondering if we are in a recession. Let me tell you something. This is my opinion. Leave your opinion in the comment section below. We are in a recession. We already are in. Okay, that's my opinion. I already showed you a video that I made before, the reasons why. Even BlackRock CEO said it. The second part that we should all be focusing on is something that is even worse than a recession, and I'll show you what I mean. And then the third part of this video is something that's worse than the worst of a recession. This isn't clickbait. I'm not joking around. There are 3 major things that we should all be paying attention to so we can make better decisions for our portfolio, make better decisions also beyond our portfolio. It's for our lives. You know, a lot of you people, I'm sure, probably have kids, you have a family. So the first thing is the tariffs that President Donald Trump has unleashed into the whole world. 10% baseline tariff, universal on everybody. And then if you're China, you know, like 420%. It doesn't even matter anymore if it's 420%. You can make it 500%. You can make it 1,000%. You can make infinite percent on China. The thing that gets me stressed out the most is the blind people who are blind and they listen to politicians blindly, and that's it. They don't even question it. They don't even research what the politician says. They don't even know what the politician said or what the politician has based his saying on. Tariffs are taxes. I hope you know that. And taxes means that you and I are the ones who are paying it in the end, not the Chinese government, not the European Union. We're paying it. And before you just say that I'm some anti-Trump guy, I'm actually not an anti-Trump guy. Okay, I'm not. I didn't think that the Biden administration did a good job at all. Okay, I was not happy at all with the Biden administration. But that doesn't mean that I should blindly accept whatever Donald Trump says. I personally like something that most of you probably have never even heard of, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm here to show you because I didn't know it either. In 2003, Warren Buffett gave a perfect, simple yet powerful solution to the U.S. economy, for the U.S. debt, for businesses, for world trade to go higher, to fix the U.S. deficit. Everything was laid out in a beautiful plan. He wrote about it in 2003, and guess what? Every single administration did since 2003. They completely ignored Warren Buffett, because they're fucking geniuses. I'll try to remember to leave the link in the comment section below. If I forget, please let me know in the comment section below. It is this one right here. The title says, even Warren Buffett warned that America's trade deficit is selling the nation out from under us, and proposed a tariff called by another name. Here's why his fix is better than Trump's. Warren Buffett explained that we can use something called a credit system for imports and exports. Every time a U.S. business exports, they get a specific amount of credits. And if a US business wants to import, they would have to have credits to import. If they don't have credits, they will have to buy credits from the companies that are exporting products out of the US. Let that sink in. Think about that. It is actually a plan that does not go after any nation in the world. We do not create any enemies. We do not create taxes on our U.S. citizens, because tariffs under the Trump administration are taxes for the U.S. citizen. You're the last person who's going to pay that tariff, and you will pay it. Import less and export more.
I think it's a bad idea, a very bad idea, but I'm not going to say it'll cause a recession. Anytime you start playing around with retaliatory type trade things, it's very likely you're going to have the other side's going to play too. I mean, that's been the history.
Donald Trump's announced sweeping new taxes on imports from around the world. The president said that America had been ripped off by foreigners for decades.
Let me say something real quick here about what President Donald Trump keeps saying all the time. Americans got ripped off for decades. Americans got ripped off for decades. So we need to go after the rest of the world and punish it and all that stuff. Okay, fine. But why aren't you punishing also American elites? They're not innocent angels. It's not like they were taken at gunpoint and told by the EU or China or Bangladesh or Vietnam that you're going to move your factories over to our country, right? I mean, am I wrong at that? Didn't US elites move their factories, move their business abroad so that they can get richer and richer and richer? right? Please let me know in the comment section below. There was something wrong within the US or the US system that made those elites to want to get out and make more and more and more and more profits to lead to what it is today, where the US doesn't produce much. And that's also kind of false, because it does produce a lot of things. On the service sector, number one globally, nobody can beat the US. Google, for example, makes more money than like 50% minimum of the countries out there in the world. I know they make a lot more money than Greece does as a nation altogether.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. A tariff on tariffs.
This is a direct attack.
Recently at Chicago, Jerome Powell said that if the markets crash, the Fed will not run to rescue the stock market.
Some people believe the Fed will intervene if the stock market plummets, the so-called Fed put. Are they correct?
I'm going to say no with an explanation.
So let's leave that part and let's move on to the second part, which is actually worse than all of this. And it hasn't occurred, but it would be horrible if it did occur.
There's a financial problem. There's an imbalance problem. There are basically 5 big forces through history that drive everything. First, there's the money, credit, debt, economic cycle, in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems. We're going to have a government debt problem. Maybe we can get into this. The second big force through time is the internal conflict force. The left and the right, differences in wealth and values causing a conflict that we're seeing it changing our political order. So the first is changing our monetary order. The second is changing our political order internally. And then the third is the great world order, how countries deal with each other. When there's a rising power challenging the existing power, and now we are going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which there's great conflict. And the other 2 factors all through history have been acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics. And number 4 is technology changing. And how they are coming together are the main forces behind this. For example, there can't be imbalances anymore in that environment.
Do you think that these tariffs are being carried out in a practical way or a chaotic way?
I think we'll see. So far, very disruptive. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again.
And let me just add something else. Warren Buffett a while back said something else. He added something extra. If the members of Congress can't reach the goal of 3%, they should never run for office again. But here's someone else who I actually like to listen to, because I like to investigate and take in information from all sorts of sources. I don't like to blindly, like I said, I don't blindly listen to anyone. I like to take information from all sorts of sources and make up my mind. One person that I like to listen to is Jeffrey Sachs.
You're running a trade deficit with all those shops. Now, it would be pretty strange if you then blamed all the shop owners for having sold you all those things. You're ripping me off. You're ripping me off. You're ripping me off. I'm running a trade deficit. That is the level of understanding of the President of the United States. The trade deficit does not represent at all trade policies. It represents spending relative to production or earnings. We call that an identity. I teach it in the second day of my course in international monetary economics. Trump never made it to the second day. So he says, you're running a trade deficit. Look, they're all cheating me. But all that's happening is the United States is outspending its national income. And you can look at the national income chart. You can add up consumption and investment and government spending, and you can subtract off gross national product, and lo and behold, what will that equal? Not approximately, exactly. That will equal the current account deficit, which is the comprehensive measure of how much you spend on goods and services versus how much you sell in goods and services. So the United States runs a current account deficit because it spends more than it produces. Why does it do that? We have a big credit card in the United States. It's called the national government. The U.S. government spends about $2 trillion a year more than it takes in revenues. What it's doing is making transfers to the American people and to American businesses. It doesn't tax Americans for those transfers because, here's another little fact, because the congressmen that vote on the budget got into office by being paid for their campaigns by rich people who don't like taxes.
Could we have had, let me know in the comment section below, a much better United States, a much better U.S. economy, a much more prosperous U.S., a much healthier U.S., happier U.S. citizens, if the United States of America had not gone into so many wars that it had so far? Maybe some wars were justified, I get it, but maybe some wars were not. And this leads us now to the third part that we need to worry about. And let me know again in the comment section below if you think that this will be justifiable or not. And that is a strike on Iran. So far, we have had talks, 2 rounds of talks, right? If I remember right, the first one was in Qatar. Second one was in Rome, April 19th, this past Saturday. And Iran hailed those talks as useful. They said it was useful, the nuclear talks with the US in Rome, right? So Iran's happy so far with both rounds of talks. They want to talk more, right? They want to keep talking. The US seems like, yeah, let's go to a third round of talks, and I think the third round of talks will be in Oman. And President Donald Trump, to his credit, seems so far to not want a war. He's trying. He doesn't want a war. He doesn't want to strike Iran. He's trying. What the U.S. is asking from Iran might not be something that they're willing to give up, and because the U.S. is asking complete shutdown of anything that is related to nuclear, right? And I don't know if Iran would ever give that up, or if they can find some middle ground, which is why you have talks, to try to get to a middle ground. And so far, all that it seems well, until you start to think about who is really involved in this, and that is Israel. They will do what they think is best, and they could care less if the U.S. says, no, don't do it. Here we have this post, breaking: Israel considering strike on Iran's nuclear sites despite Trump's warnings. And some might say, well, who cares? That's Israel. They have the right to do that. That's their problem. We're not going to get involved anyways. Wrong. If Israel is involved in a war, the U.S. automatically gets involved. Because that's just, don't even think about it. You don't need to think about it too much. There's not, a lot of philosophical thinking to do. That's just it. That's just, the U.S. has made it clear. Whatever Israel gets involved in that's negative for them will be there. This is the third part, which I consider worse than recession. Recession is, like, if we had peace around the world, all right, and we went through just a recession, who cares? Who cares? Recessions go by so quick, and then we go to bull markets, and everything's fine. Things would get really ugly if Russia got involved, if China got involved in somehow, or if China took advantage of that situation and said, hey, you know what, you're busy with Israel over Iran, let me go over to Taiwan. Russia says, you know what, you guys are busy over there in Iran, maybe I'll get involved, or maybe I'll do something else. Europe will just be Europe, and that's that. I mean, these are the three things that keep me up when I think about the economies, when I think about where we're headed. It stresses me out because I'm a father, I have kids, and it's not, life isn't just about stocks, right? Like I said, it would be awesome if the whole problem was just a recession, right? And so we'll see. So let me conclude by saying this, in my opinion. Tariffs. They're not 100% wrong, but they are 100% imposed and handled and thought about how they will be implemented wrong, in my opinion. It has proven to be making a lot of moves so far that does make sense. One day they say up, the next day they say down, the next day they say left, the next day they say right, the next day they say pause, then they say let's go back, then they say let's pause again. It's a little frustrating. It seems a little, sloppy and messed up. I don't know what the heck is going on. We don't know the exact numbers. They keep saying that the world ripped us off, but they don't explain in detail exactly how we got ripped off. The second part is the monetary policy, the world order, and how it's changing around that, which is insane. It's scary. I don't want to think about that. If you start to think about that, it's pretty scary. I think maybe that's even worse than a strike on Iran, but... and then the third part is the strike in Iran, which I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I mean, if the U.S. gets involved in that, then tell me what was the point of creating the DOGE, Department of Efficiency, and firing a bunch of people and saying that you saved the government, you saved the U.S. government, you saved the U.S. people $1 billion in needless expenses and all that stuff. Well, you're going to spend that and 10 times more in going to war with Iran, aren't you? So the whole point of trying to save money and create something better for the U.S. is kind of pointless if you're going to wars all the time. And like I said, it seems to me that the United States, it seems to me that Donald Trump is trying to avoid any conflict with Iran, not because the U.S. is afraid. The U.S. is not afraid. They can obviously obliterate Iran if they wanted to, but they understand the consequences, the financial consequences. They understand that there's no if we can get away from this, it would be a lot better. So let my viewers know, am I right? If Iran is hit and there's a strike on Iran and its nuclear facilities, won't oil prices in the world go up, and why would they go up? What would cause the oil prices to go up?
That's right. Iran is a major oil producer, so any disruption to its production or exports would likely cause a significant spike in global oil prices due to reduced supply. Plus, the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping lane for oil, is nearby, and any conflict there could impact oil transport, further driving up prices. Do you want to explore the potential economic impacts of this scenario?
No. Don't nobody got time for that. All right, so that's that. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. And stick around, subscribe to this channel, because this channel is not just about that. It's 99.99% about stocks. My next video will be about a stock that I believe will do well within this year. It's around $4 or $5, so you might want to watch that. Thank you very much and take care.